Welcome again, all. Another episode of Hashtag Fully Booked Meets. You're here with myself, Mace. French is en route and will be here shortly. An honourable mention to Pox, who can't be with us, currently away on business. Today we've got a very special guest. Before I introduce him, I'm going to list out some of the things I know you do. Historian, public speaker, researcher. There's about 5 things I've missed, but I'm leaving that gap for you, Mr. Darrel Blake. Mr. Darrel Blake. Thank you for joining us, Darrel.
Thank you.
So do you want to just finish off what I was about to mention? What else can be labelled next to your name?
Probably mentor, youth leader. I don't want to list out too many things, but those are the main things that I do on a day-to-day basis. Mainly.
So one of the reasons that I've kind of brought you onto the podcast is I went to an event maybe about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and Johnny Pitts, the author of Afro-European, was speaking at this event. So that's what first attracted me to the event. I heard about it through a mutual friend of ours. So I've gone down there. I didn't realise, well, I knew there'd be a guest panel, but I didn't realise who the guest panel would be. Anyway, so after Johnny Pitts, the author of Afro-European, has kind of finished his segment, there was a question and answer segment, the second part of the evening, and Darrel Blake was part of that panelist. And some of the questions and the responses I was receiving back, it intrigued me, and I said I want to have a more in-depth conversation with yourself.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, like, how can I find out more about this guy? So I think I briefly approached you. I know there was a lot of kind of people at the venue, and everyone was kind of speaking to each other. But I briefly approached, just kind of gave you a brief introduction to what we do. And you told me you had another event coming up. You had an event coming up, and I could attend. So I researched that, and it was the Dole test, the reenactment of the Dole test. Attended that event, very, very popular. I'm assuming it was sold out. It was a sold out event, very popular, in a massive hall, completely packed. And it was a really, really good evening. So congratulate you on that, because I never got a chance to speak to you after about that. But what I want to know is that, as I kind of briefly mentioned before we went on air, what we kind of do on Fully Booked is we love to speak about the kind of power and influence that books can have on individuals, or how books can be used by individuals to motivate them to succeed, to drive more in life, in it, or any kind of roles and responsibilities they feel they have to themselves or a community or to a wider audience. I want to get Darrel Blake's story today. So literally, if you want to give a brief background into what you do, as in some of the things that I've listed out, but also how you've got there, how you've become the Darrel Blake you are today. I don't mind you going all the way back to childhood, where it starts. Yeah, and then we'll touch upon subjects that I know you've got little palms and hands in.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. I know this has been a long time coming since we met up at the Afro-European book club, and obviously we spoke briefly at the documentary premiere in London. What can I say, really? In a nutshell, my journey has been about empowering my people, empowering African people from the diaspora. Now, the reason for that is because through my childhood, and I grew up in Brixton, and I was kind of centered around community, centered around, you know, that feeling of everybody's your mom, everybody's your dad. Okay. And within that came knowledge. Within that came responsibility and sense of like identity. You kind of knew who your friends were, but there was a sense of collectiveness when it came to, not even when it came to race, because there was a class system. So no matter what race you were, what faith you were, you was all the same. So I'll be kicking ball with some of my white friends, some of my Muslim friends, it didn't matter. It was one family. And what brought about that was the sense of, do you know what, we're in this together. As I grew up, I started to get knowledge through music. So it was my dad who put me on reggae music. And within reggae music came the knowledge of self, came the knowledge of I, came the knowledge of blackness, came the knowledge of Marcus Garvey. Through Black Uhuru, Bob Marley, through Peter Tosh, I started to get into who is this Marcus Garvey character. And then when I started to read upon Marcus Garvey, I was like, right, okay, this gentleman is powerful. Marcus Garvey is a gentleman born in the 1800s. He was born in Jamaica, but he was a Pan-Africanist. Pan-Africanist is basically someone who believes in the continent of Africa and those outside of Africa, and Africa's born within you. Kwame Nkrumah says, I am not African because I was born there. it's because Africa was born within me. So he gets the ideology from Marcus Garvey, who was basically about it's Africa for the Africans. Now, when I had that knowledge, I was very young, but I didn't know what to do with it, because it's like, okay, when I say young, I was like looking at about 11, 12, 13 at the time. It was my auntie, who is a Hebrew. I didn't even know black people could be Jewish back then. Like, I can't be honest. But I always used to think, like, why is she always dressed like that? Why is there no TV in her house? Anyway, so it was my auntie who put me on the idea of there's a higher power, there's a higher source. She made me fast. Now, my auntie, love her to bits. She was the one that she wouldn't like Bible bash or anything like that, but she would like try and drop in a little, so what are you doing with yourself? Have you prayed recently? I'm like, nah, I'm not even praying, you know, I'm on the roads doing certain things. And there was one day she said, I want you to fast. And it was called the Atonement. It was in November. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was so crazy because I said, you know what, let me do this fast and see what she's talking about. So I did this fast where it was like 7 days where I couldn't have certain food. So I can only eat like egg, bread, could drink water, I could have grape juice. Yeah, there's certain things I couldn't have, but that was what I stuck to for like 7 days. After that fast, I can honestly say my life changed. Like, I remember it was an instant where my grandma was ill on my mum's side, and my grandma was from Coventry. We live in London, and my grandma was like not well. She was in hospital, and my auntie was up there. I remember my auntie was on the phone to my mum saying, mum's kidneys have gone. Okay, cool. 5 minutes later, her liver's gone. Okay. So many things. And I was like, okay, grandma's gonna pass away. So I went into the garden, and I must have closed the door behind me, and I was like, this is like a little while after I did the fast, like a couple of weeks. And I was like, okay, so God, Jehovah, Isa, Buddha, I don't know who's up there, but if you could just spare my grandma for like a few months, because my mum's not financially good at the moment, let it just, you know, but if you got to take her, so be it. But if you could just hold out a little bit, yeah, because my auntie told me I could speak to you like you're one of my friends, so I'm sorry if you think I'm being rude. I was talking in the garden by myself, and I was 14 at the time.
Okay.
So,
and are you religious? Are you quite religious at this point in your life?
It's more spiritual.
Okay.
Right. So, there was silence. I was like, okay, give me a sign. Silence. Okay. So as I turned around to go into the house now, there's a next door's tree. It's a big tree. It was like going, it was going crazy. I was like, yeah, duppy, I'm out. I went into the house, yeah. Ran into the house. I sat down. I was like, oh my gosh. 10 minutes later, mum comes running down the stairs. Grandma's awake. I was like, whoa. Went to go and tell my auntie. Auntie was like, yeah, because God has these open seas on the planet, and it just takes for them to be watered in order for them to, but it takes that moment in time. It happens at different points in people's lives. Yeah. So she goes, when you was living in Jamaica, you was an open seed. Your grandma did it. She just broke down so many things. I was like, wow. So I started to read more. Then I started to sit down with a few my Muslim brothers, and they was teaching me stuff. And then I went to the Rastas. They was giving me more lectures. And then I sat down with a couple of Buddhists, and they told me about the importance of silence. This is why a lot of Buddhists take the oath of silence, because there's so much power. And my brother says this, sound without focus is just noise. And that's why, like, when I go to the opera, I understand how powerful silence is, because silence gives you focus. Because if you knock out your ears, everything else enhances, like all other senses. So when I started to sit down with different factions, sitting down with Kemetic priestesses, these ones that believe in, like, I don't use like the term Egyptology, but they believe in Kemet, and they started showing me about spirituality, and then they talked about the chakras. And I was like, so every year, like every other year, I was sitting down with different people, like mentors and elders, and they was giving me the knowledge, making me read certain books. And this
is from the age of 14, Bill.
Yeah, 14.
So you're in high school about year 9, year 10.
Yeah.
And how do you converse with people your age group when you're thinking like this? And
the thing about, there's only one person I could speak to, and he was the guy that put me on. Like, he spooked me out, because he was like, "Have you heard of Illuminati?" I'm like, "What?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" So he gave me a book and he said, read it. I read the first page.
Which book?
I couldn't.
On Illuminati.
Yeah. I think it was by what's his name? It's gonna bug me. It will come though. But he was not Dr. Phil Valentine. Something Alex. Anyway, he's got a podcast out at the moment. He's been writing books and he's always doing conspiracies and anyway.
Okay.
He gave me a book. I read the first page. I was like, nah, I'm putting it down. The same week, my brother said, I want you to come and see me. I was like, well, after school? He's like, yeah. Came to his house and then he was like, all right, I'm going to order some pizza. I'm going to put some documentaries on for you, but I want you to watch this one first. And when I come back, I want to talk about it. I was like, yeah, sure. Domino's Pizza, barbecue base. Nice, big brother. I love it. He goes, all right, I'm going to turn the light off. I'm like, yeah, go and do your thing. So I'm just eating a pizza in the dark. This documentary was about an hour and 45 minutes. Remember, I'm 14 at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just straight about Freemasons, Illuminati, reptiles, shapeshifters, It was just one after the other. I was like, what? Like, when he came back, I was sitting in the same position. I didn't even go to the toilet because I was scared. I was like, wow. He goes, what do you think? I was like, nah. No, what is that? Anyway, and then he's like, all right, you got to go home because you got school in the morning. I'm like, so you want me to go home by myself? It's like coming up to 10 o'clock.
You've just made me watch something that's just shifted my mind.
I didn't even know. I had no idea. And you want me to go home by myself. So I'm sitting on the train now thinking, oh, these people reptiles. Did they blink that way? Like, I was thinking, what? But then I'm very inquisitive. So I started to ask more questions to my brother. And then I said to my friend, I know about this. He goes, yeah. I was like, watch something. And then from there, my head just began like a sponge in water. So I'm not religious, but I like to take many things from different faith beliefs and different religions because I can apply it to my life. And I think if that's conducive, then cool. The main reason why I don't stick to religion is because many of them, especially the monotheistic ones, the basic ones, either have racism or sexism in there. I can't. I don't get it. I can't.
It doesn't agree with your moral.
This is it.
Compass.
If it's for you, cool. I mean, I know some amazing people. Like my friend, he's Sikh, Jaspreet from Birmingham. He's fantastic, such a cool guy, and he gives me knowledge on the Sikh faith, and I'm just like, wow, I'm blown away. So I can take stuff from there, and then someone who's Hindu, and then But yeah, I just have to have something that works for me, and that's just spirituality, just being divine and just loving the next person. Okay, so you'd say growing up age of 14 and as you're getting older, you're reading a lot of kind of spiritual books, spiritual books. What can you define, or can you put your finger on one in particular that really changed your mindset or really kind of helped you to develop into on spirituality or on spirituality? There's a book. So you put me on the spot now. By Queen Afua. I am so sorry for laughing me. I totally forgot the title, but it's a blue book. You know, when you type Queen Afua as Afua as in AFUA. When you type Queen Afua into Amazon, you will see her book. I think it's called Divine something. That book there, phenomenal. Spirituality, Dr. Laila Africa as well. He's got a book for the life of me. Oh my gosh, it's escaped my mind. It's a white book and it's got Africa. It's a green Africa on the front. You can't miss it. It's a fantastic book. It's thick. And then I think Robin Walker, When We Ruled. I think that book, it was not really spirituality, but it brings blackness into the presence of literally when we was on the continent doing great things, as opposed to as an alternative narrative to what we now understand about. So I think those three books were definitely something that. That's on a spiritual level, and you were about to shift onto something else, a different subject, on another level. So when it comes to like blackness and black history, then it changes, right? And also, before you go on to that, and you mention any books that have influenced you in that sense, where I know you've kind of grown up and you've sought out knowledge from Rastafarians, not just from Rastafarians, from all sorts of different people and different who have different beliefs and religions, but tell me, what has kind of led you to want to study and learn more about kind of black history and kind of black empowerment and these kind of things? What's led me? It's literally just the information alone, because when you're growing up and you're going to school and then let's say like Black History Month and you learn about slavery in like year 9. Black History Month year 10, slavery. Year 11, slavery. You go college, you might not even learn anything that has any blackness in it. But then it's Black History Month, so you probably see a couple of films on TV, but you might go to a few events, slavery. So when you hear that, you're like, slaves. Until you pick up a book and it's like, do you know what? Like, we built empires. What? We created music. What? We gave the world math, pi. We was the first people to actually write letters. I was like, what? Us? Huh? And because I'm inquisitive anyway, my passion is music and my passion is like philosophy. I'm like, what? We did this? So it made me want to read more because I saw myself. I saw a positive representation where it's not, okay, he's a black guy with a hood, so he's a criminal. It's like, no, he's someone who's capable of creating the internet. It's by a Nigerian guy. He's the one that created the perfect shoe so that we can all wear shoes on the street. He's also someone who, like, when you see the street sweepers, the machines, the guys that sit in the thing and they got the brushes, he's a guy that created that. You look at CCTV, that's by someone else. Then you got Jesse Russell, who created the phone. And then you've got Shirley Jackson, who created caller ID. And then you got the traffic light. Then you've got the gas mask. And then you look at all these people that create these things, you're like, we are some inventors. And where we invented these things are in spaces that predominantly do not like black people. So imagine you're being oppressed, you're in an institution that's pretty much racist, whether it's education, or it's occupational, or societal, and you're still managing to say, you know what, here's my contribution, I'm going to create something. Imagine creating a gas mask, right? And you create a gas mask, but the gas mask you created was not used for your people. So you create a gas mask, then there are racist people in Europe, like Germany, who then say, all right, well, we're going to have the gas mask, but we're going to use that to save the Aryan race, and everybody else who's not blonde hair, blue-eyed, you're going to die. And especially black people. So you create something that wasn't even used for your people.
For what it's meant.
Do you see what I'm saying? So, but it just goes to show, like you were saying earlier, my resilience earlier, before we started rolling, like it's the love that I see within ourselves, that despite all the things we faced, we're still loving people. Whether you're, no matter what faith you are, no matter what you've gone through in life, you are a loving person. It shows we're always acceptable, always like okay, we always want to get approval from, we're just loving people. And that's been our own detriment as well, seeking the other and trying to be, when people are trying to take from us, we're just willingly going. No matter if it's educational, whether it's something to do with music or film or culture. Like popular culture is based upon urbanization. It's based upon what happens in the streets and manifests out. That comes from struggle, and that comes from, let's do something for ourselves. There's something that we can, there is something that we can be proud of, and let's just keep it within our community. And then you say, do you know what? We can offer it because someone's like, hey, can we come in? And we're like, yeah, sure, come in. We let them in, they take over, and then, and we've been doing it for time, and that's always been our detriment. If black people on a whole across the globe have created something like music, every genre of music there is, but we don't get credit for the music that's being created now, it's bad and it's institutionally racist, but we let it happen. We created dancehall, but most of the popular culture songs that happen today is based upon the same beat, rhythm of dancehall.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think we're able to let people infiltrate or kind of divide and conquer, as they say, and kind of let our kind of inventiveness be masked over, and it's not kind of glorified, or it's not in the kind of public eye as much as it should be?
Because we don't own and control anything. That's what racism is. Racism is prejudice plus power. So when we're in a state where we're, okay, so I'm Rasta, you're Christian, I don't want to deal with you. You're Muslim, cool. You're Igbo, you're Twas, you're da-da-da-da-da. When you're all these things, that just creates the divide and conquer because you're too busy worrying about yourself. Other nations have got it right. There's something called the wage of whiteness that Malcolm X talks about, meaning like, even when he was saying this in Harlem, like back in the 60s, saying even the poorest white person in Harlem is glad he's not black, because there's something about being black.
It's a stigma,
right? So Black History Month is seen as, because there's nothing to glorify, because we don't have anything to show off. No one really wants to be black. I just do that generically. There are individuals obviously proud to be black, but as a whole, we're not proud to be black. Black History Month is like, yeah, we've got 31 days, happens to be the same month that we've got Halloween, cool. And there's this, okay, let's do this event, let's do that event, let's be proud to this, wear our dashikis and whatnot. But then when it gets to November, everybody's just quiet. There's nothing. It's like football. We become glory hunters. Like, imagine watching football for the first time and you see Messi play. It's like, I want to support Barcelona. He's on stuff. Like, that's what it is. But you got to stop having blackness treated like it's glory. It's not. You should be wearing it every day and be proud. But when there's no representation of positive outcomes, when there's no representation of people that have been through the struggle, have made it out, when there's no positive representation in places of power, then no one really wants to be black because we're scared. And because we don't build a community, we don't want to take the risk and stand out and be Malcolm X because we don't think anybody's going to care. And that's our own fault. Most of our issues are literally our own fault. No one, and that's the reason why there's no black power in the sense of like the civil rights movement, because no one's ready to die. I'm all for my community, but I know if I go out there and start speaking, there's probably going to be like five or six people that are going to be like, yeah, Darrel, and that's it. The rest of the people ain't going to do it.
There's a few points. So we actually had a guest on the Fully Booked Meets previously, a guy called Kaya Kazi. And it was one of the things he mentioned. He said there's someone who he associates with who actually used to try and do these protests, and it was mainly against kind of knife crime. But because it affects the black community so much and so badly and so terribly, he was like, look, we need to do something about it. There's no one out there that's really doing much. That's really there's not much. We have to help ourselves, essentially, before anyone else wants to help us.
100%.
And I remember him saying that one of his friends, who's a popular DJ, will play at all clubs, have all these dances. People always rock up to the dances, sold out, sell-off events, whatever. He tried to put together some marches. He said, do you think those same people come out and support the marches on a wet Saturday afternoon? Do you know what I mean?
No, definitely not.
So you're right in a sense in that it's almost like we're not sticking together, or people are not sticking together and really I'm willing to die for the cause. And it leads me on to an example that's going on at the moment. When we have riots in this country, for instance, like the most recent one is the Tottenham riots. That lasted 4 or 5 days, ended up turning into or the media portrayed it as a loot fest after a few days. Yeah. And they kind of dwindled out and everyone went back to their day-to-day, whatever. If you notice across the pond right now in Hong Kong, I don't know what month we're in, but there's non-stop protests about the legislation with what the Chinese government are trying to introduce for the people who are currently residing in Hong Kong. Something to do with extradition laws. There's a little bit more to it. I know one of the main things is the ability for the Chinese government to be able to extradite those residents living in Hong Kong for certain crimes, and obviously they don't want to live under that government's rule, essentially. But that has been non-stop every single day for, I don't know, I couldn't tell you how many months now, because it's longer than days. But it just goes to show, if you really believe in a cause, if a people or a group really believe in the cause, you're right, you have to be willing to die for it. We can go all the way back to slavery, where people were just like, nah. Like, if everyone during slavery had just continued as they were, we would be in the same position now.
Oh, of course.
We'd be in the same position now.
Oh, 100%, definitely. Going to what you're saying about Hong Kong, and it's about dynamics. When you're in Hong Kong, all right, when you watch it on the news, and you got the protests, and they protest, all right, so you got people from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Who are they protesting against?
From what I understand, the Chinese government.
Yeah.
Okay.
But all in all, they are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Because Hong Kong's on the cusp of China.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Cool. Here, if we're writing against anybody else, we're writing against another race that we are scared of. They're writing against themselves. Like, why am I scared of you? Are you mad? Like,
okay.
If we're scared to even, there's something called acculturation. And the acculturation process that happens to us where we're in school or in work is where we adapt to another culture. We take it on. So, for example, you go into work, you see it a lot. A lot of women may have their hair a certain way because their work team or workforce are like, do you know what? Well, I don't think I feel comfortable with that afro, or you having your natural hair. So, yeah, cool. They will drop a little digs like, oh, so is that your hair, is it? And you're actually, let me just put in a wig because I can't be bothered. They're not every woman, but there are many cases where I've been told, what, I've had certain conversations and I just I'd rather just throw on my wig and just keep it moving, stops all the conversation. So there was a acculturation process where we adapt to someone else's culture. They don't adapt to black culture or African culture or whatever. We adapt to their culture because we're going into their spaces. So in the acculturation process is that you slowly become them. So as African people, we're very rhythmic. Everything's to do with timing. Everything's key. So key based in terms of tones and frequencies. When you laugh, like you see when you're with your friends, how do you laugh?
Wildly.
Right.
If something's really bust me up, then wildly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just naturally, it'll just whatever.
You might even tap your friend. You know, like you might.
Oh yeah.
Yo, do you know what I mean? And at the end of the laugh goes, whoo.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or you might laugh, but you're laughing on the inside, but there's a little sound that comes out. You know that?
Yeah.
Right. You do that. Try and do that in a corporate space. No, you have to ha 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 and then stop. You adjust, because if you're like, woo, hey, no, listen. If you do that, it's a wrap. They're gonna be like, oh, you're quite urban, you're quite ghetto. So we have to tuck in our natural Africanness just to please other people. So how are we gonna riot every single day against people that we have to conform to be with? It's crazy. It's never gonna happen. Not for now. I don't think the change that I want to see is gonna happen in my lifetime. That's why I do the, early intervention and community work, because of the younger generation. I want them to learn from my parents' mistake, and because when my family was doing bits and pieces in terms of like rioting in the 80s, when you had the New Cross fire and stuff like that, you had the Black Power movement here, you had British Black Panthers here in the 70s, and even in the 60s. But what happened is the government saw that there was an uprising in black consciousness. Mixed race people call themselves black. Yeah. I mean, the term, even mixed race on a census only came out in 2000. Okay. 2010 when they perfected it. So before that, mixed race people...
Perfected, but anyway.
Well, loosely perfected, because people say I'm Irish. Anyway, that's another story. So before that, mixed race people call themselves black. You see what I'm saying? So they knew where they were. All right, cool. So the government's like, all right, well, we need to change education, because we want to change the curriculum where we want to put in a system where you have to go through this in order to get a job. Because a lot of our parents' generation, their hands were their skills. So that was their trade. They didn't have to go to college to get a job. Now it's like, all right, cool. Well, we want to change the system where you're going to need to get these qualifications in order to work here. Forget what you can do. You need these qualifications. So certain men were like, you know what? Let me just try and go to school and try and figure this out. School being education, be it college or whatever. Let me try and figure this out because I want a job. Some people say, no, I'm staying to the streets. They're like, okay, so you've got a separation. So certain people want to go out and riot and protest in the 80s, late 70s. Some people are like, nah, I need to hit these books. Cool. The music as well started to change. So even though it was revolutionary, I was saying like Black Uhuru, and you got Dennis Brown Revolution, like, yeah, cool. But then Love Is What came out, late 70s, early 80s, when it started to become more. So women started singing about heartache and pain and love. So when you've got certain guys looking to hit the books and try and figure it out and try to go study and maybe go to uni, then you've got music changing. So some women are saying, do you know what? I don't need men because I'm good. Men are trash. And then certain men are like, do you know what? No, we ain't trash. No, babes, let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. So you've got certain men saying, yeah, do you know, we need to go down to Brixton police station because they lock up Leroy. And so certain men say, do you know what? And they look over and they see their woman there and they're just like, do you know what? Boy, we can't even, you know, we just, all right, cool, yeah? All right, look more. Hang up the phone. And then they're going to go over to so the numbers start to dwindle. Then it's like council tax. That goes up. So it's like, all right, well, you need to work because you got to have a job if you want to be with me. Okay. So then it started to do. So they knew anybody can be a revolutionary when you're broke. When you're rich, that's when everything changes because you have
system's working for you as it is.
Exactly. So it starts to like collapse slowly as you get to like the late 80s. Then the 90s happen. And then so on and so forth. So what happened was that we didn't set up a base to say, do you know what? You go to work and change the system from the inside. We will keep it organic and in the streets and try and change it. No, everybody just kind of just went dispersed and it just died out. So because they didn't show us what the mistake was, people that was born in the 80s, born in the 90s, we're just picking up from where they left off. And we have no clue about what we're doing. And then the younger generation that are in their teens, they have no idea because we haven't even figured it out. So we've got these young people running around not having a clue of what, like, so I work in schools and a lot of young people, I said, what's your race? I don't know. Maybe I'm like, okay, what's your ethnicity? I don't know. What's your nationality? Don't know. What's your culture? Don't know. I'm like, bro, you're in year 11. What do you mean you don't know? So we have a lot of young people, especially from like working class background, have no sense of identity, therefore they have nothing to be proud of because we're not sitting down as 30-year-olds, as 40-year-olds, we're not leaving anything behind. Say, you know what, come over here. This is the reason why you shouldn't be killing that person is because they are you, that's your brother. But for them to understand, that's my brother, I'm not going to kill him, they have to understand that they're family. And if we're not giving them the tools to say, hey, you know, this is what you should be doing, think about this, then it's our fault. What's happening to young people is our fault. For us to change the narrative, we have to bring them to drink the water from the lake. But they're not going to be thirsty. Okay, well, if you put salt in the hay, they're going to be thirsty. You have to give them a purpose and give them a reason. When it comes to blackness, all right, so Birmingham City University has black studies degree, right? It's in its 3rd year now. It's the first time in Europe we've ever had a black studies degree.
Are you studying this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So black studies came out in America in 69. So it's like, hold on, we're 50 years behind America. Blackness as a whole is nothing without United States. If the United States don't do anything, then black people just don't know that they exist. They're in America, but they're still a bit ignorant because they think, oh, the black people in London drink tea with the Queen. I'm like, you know, we're in the belly of the beast, right? If it wasn't for England, you wouldn't be there, literally. Like, so blackness in a whole, in terms of sense of identity. I mean, you got this book here. This is one of my favorite books. It's called Miseducation of a Negro by Carter G. Woodson. Now, he talks about how the system is basically working and not working. It's working because it's doing its job, but it's not working because it doesn't basically represent black people. It doesn't represent African Americans, and the doctrine in there is very poisonous. It's very racist. So he's the one that also came out with Negro History Week, which was on February the 14th. So before he had Black History Month, he had Negro History Week, and I believe that was like 1921 when he came out with that. Because he's like, you know what, let's have a day where we just celebrate blackness. And then it became a week. Well, it became a day, then it became a week, and it became a whole month. So that's where we got idea of our Black History Month started in 1987. Because we was like, you know what, we need to have our own knowledge, we need to have our own information, and we need to teach ourselves, which was off the back of something called the Saturday School, which is a Pan-African school, which is an alternative learning space that pretty much teaches you everything that you can learn in school, but from a black perspective. And like literally those were the things that kind of got black people through Britain from before Windrush right up until, we could say now, but because of austerity, but they've closed down centres and there's not enough spaces for us to have Saturday schools, how young people are missing out on great things that used to be like prominent in the 80s and 90s. So blackness as a whole, it's because I'm currently writing a book as well called Blackness, Myth or Reality, with a question mark, meaning is it real or not? Because I go through the historical definition or the etymology of blackness and what does it actually mean, and what are the connotations attached to blackness, whether you're black in Brazil, or you're black in Europe, or you're black in America, or you're black in Asia. Like, what does it actually mean? Because there's a difference between being black in Brazil and being black in Europe.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you know who would have loved being here today? Pocker, because he's a man who's travelled a lot. Yeah. And if you would say, we'd have plenty of questions for you on that. So you touched on a couple of points actually. Oh, welcome French. Hey. What's happening? What's happening, French? Thanks for joining us. Yes. How you doing, French? How you doing, man? Yeah. Sorry. So you touched on a couple of points just then. I wanna kind of, when you breezed over a couple of points, I wanna touch back on. So the kind of Black history studies that you're currently involved with. You're in your 3rd year, did you say?
Yeah, Black studies. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to know a little bit more about what that entails, but also because you've started now by kind of going into this book. I want you brought a load of books with you. Yeah. I want you to kind of break down what these books mean to you and why you've brought them on the podcast.
All right, cool. So I started with this one. This is a gentleman named William Leo Hansberry. To be honest, if it wasn't for this gentleman, we probably wouldn't even have this book here, which is the Miseducation of a Negro. Reason being, this gentleman here is considered the father of black studies. Okay. He was the one that said, you know what? We need to put blackness in the curriculum. He's the father. He's the one that kind of pushed it. Very intelligent guy. I know Booker T. Washington was very intelligent, and you know he's a bit of a dodgy guy at times. But I think I would have to say William Leo Hansberry was the guy who kind of birthed this whole power of black studies being, it needs to be in the curriculum and it needs to be taught in people's houses as well as any other space you can do, because obviously church was a big thing back in these days, back in his time. So if you can put blackness in church, great. If you can put it in any other sort of kind of meeting or gathering, then good. So this gentleman, I don't want to say too much because I want people to read it. It's a phenomenal, like I didn't even know about this gentleman until like 2 years ago. Like,
first time I'm hearing of him. I've heard of Booker T. Washington. I've read that book, The Miseducation of the Negro, but William Lee Hansberry.
Yeah, and it's a short book. It's by another gentleman that I met, which is Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, and he used to be called Booker T. Coleman. You might have seen him on Hidden Colours, or if you've seen that, he's in all five of them. Brilliant brother. He's the one that kind of showed me about the importance of like breathing and understanding your spirituality through the ends of, because for example, like this is what I do with my young people when I work in schools, is like I say to them, could you go a whole day without eating food? They was like, yeah. I was like, could you go a whole day without drinking? They're like, yeah, I could. I was like, okay, could you go a whole day without breathing? They was like, no. So I go, what's important? More important, food, water, or air? And they say air. So I'm like, all right, so tell me about air then. It's the most important thing. Tell me about air. And they're like, you breathe. I'm like, okay, what else? And it's like, it's oxygen. I was like, okay, well, carbon dioxide, cool. I'm like, all right, well, tell me about it. How do you breathe then? They're like this, yeah, I'm breathing like. I'm like, that's inhale, exhale, but how do you breathe? And they're like, I don't know. So I do this exercise. I'll do it with you like right now, actually, real quickly. And this is how say ancient Egypt, but it's Kemet. This is what they used to teach as well, in terms of, because you've got a left and right brain, you've got a left and right heart, which is your left ventricle, right ventricle, you've got your lungs, everything you've got left and right. Yeah. So how you should be breathing exactly how a door is, just open, close, open, close. But we don't do that. We're just like every day, get intense. So this is what you need to do. If you get your right thumb, and pull it over your right nostril, okay, and I want you to breathe in and hold it, and then I'll show you what to do next. So you breathe in, hold it, pinch it, and then release. Then breathe out, breathe in, pinch it, breathe out. We do it one more time. Breathe in, pinch it, breathe out, and then actually one more time. Breathe in, pinch it, breathe out. Now when you it start to feel a bit clear. It's because you're breathing with the chambers within your lungs and within your heart and with your brain.
Head, bro.
Right. I've got a cold. I'm coming off a cold, so yeah, it just felt a bit. That's like to take that extra.
You can feel the hairs in your nostril. Yeah. But if we breathe properly every day, if you do that like in the morning, in the night, it just clears you out. It's kind of like what Dr. Sebi talks about with mucus and stuff like that.
How long would you do that exercise for?
I'd say if you breathe in and breathe out, do it. I like to do it like 10 times. So like that. If you do it 10 times in the morning, in the night, you're good. It just keeps it clear, because especially for our young people, they don't know how to breathe. So I say to them, look, you tense up. And that's why you don't think, because your brain's starving. You need oxygen. So when a teacher goes, let's say Kieran, come here, like, gosh, like what? Like you're tensing again, what? And you're starting to get hot, and your brain's like, hello, I need air. And you're tensing, you're holding it in. So you're not thinking straight because you're being erratic. But if you said, do you know what? That's what chi is. That's what Bruce Lee talks about. It's chi, it's ka, it's the air, it's the essence of breathing.
As you're saying that, I'm just thinking about back in the day, because I used to get in trouble in school, and I always used to get told, breathe and count to 10. And just doing that, it does calm you down. And I guess that makes sense when you're not getting air to your brain. You're gonna get amped up, and you're gonna get, you know what I mean? Yeah. You stop listening, and all you see is red.
Exactly.
So yeah, that makes sense.
Now breathing, like something like that. So that's what Kaba Hawafa Kabane, that's what he taught me. He's a legend. So he actually wrote this book about Leo Hansberry, because I didn't know about I knew about black studies, but I didn't know he was the kingpin, which then birthed this. Because I'll relate it back to my studies, but I feel like in America there was only, I think black people were black for 40 years. So you had W.E. Du Bois. He was like, do you know what, we need black politics. Marcus Garvey was like, all right, well, we need black economics. Okay, so you had Booker T. Washington, and you could say Carter G. Woodson was like, okay, well, we need black education. And then you had Elijah Muhammad was like, well, we need black religion, creating the Nation of Islam. It was like every decade was like boom, 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 boom. Then the government was like, no, we need to get rid of these people, because this is, every decade there's something new and blackness is growing. Obviously you had Black Wall Street as well in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They were just like blah, 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 blah. It's just like, oh, can we just do something? And then the 50s it changed, and obviously you had the Tuskegee experiment with the syphilis thing, and they started to wipe out black people. But black studies began in Cornell University in 1969 because they were pretty much, in a nutshell, they felt like they was excluded from the curriculum. And especially when it came to like science, you had lecturers being racist in science, saying black people came from monkeys and all this stuff, whilst you've got black students. Like, do you know what I mean? Especially if you're a black girl in a class like that, you are definitely going to feel a little bit like, oh, wait a minute. So there's like, no, we got to switch it up. So it started in 1969 in Cornell University, and then it developed and it grew. And then African studies came after that, and so on and so forth. But with black studies here in Birmingham City University by Professor Kehinde Andrews, he wanted to bring that elements, which basically is about the community component, with black studies being blackness across the African diaspora. And it's been an honour to even join that course, because we touch on black history here in Britain, but we touch on black politics, we touch on feminism, we touch on the empowerment of music and how that played a role, because every music genre was revolutionary at some point, and how blackness was like, you know what, we're going to use this as a tool. That's how jazz started. Jazz was about going into like these blues parties and going into the underground and speaking about experiences and how we can overthrow the system, until it went mainstream, and then someone was like, yeah, we're going to pick it up. There's always one person that's going to bring it out. Do you know what I mean? We did the same thing with Jackie Robinson. We had obviously the Negro League, and then you had the mainstream league, and it was like, do you know what, Jackie Robinson, 42, Brooklyn Dodgers, cool. We're going to let him play in that league. But what happened? There was like, okay, well, we will let him play over here with us, but we want to let a couple of people over there. And then once that happened, it was over, because the Negro League started to die, because people was just like, oh, I want to join him. I want to play as well. Then you leave your community, you leave your ends, and then you go over there, and then you don't own and control anything. So you're still going to be called boy, you're still going to be called coon, you're still going to be called monkey, all these sort of things, and then you lose that value. Same with jazz. We let people in, cool, great, fantastic. It's for everyone. It's music, but it's about the music from the soul. It's about struggle. Jazz came from blues music, which was about the struggle, but it was about how do I get through the system, as well as try and find myself. How do I be a man? Do you know what I mean? Because my woman's leaving me, I got to try and find this job, the police are beating on me. Do you know what I mean? That same basic riff, my wife left me, like masters after me, do you know what I mean? It came from spiritual songs that was in the plaza, and the struggle came from plaza. So every music came from struggle. You could even do garage, you could do.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could bring it up to
today. Jungle was underground, but jungle, obviously, because of the drum pattern. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? That BPM you're hearing, that's drums. Doom 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 doom. That's what you're hearing. Plus, on top of that, it was sampled from dancehall. Dancehall obviously came from reggae, ska, rocksteady, again, alternative music. Some of it's about love. So it all ties. And then grime is an extension of garage and jungle in terms of spitting, or toasting, which is a dancehall thing. And then that came from, because we couldn't get anything from East onto mainstream. So it's like, let's go on private station, let's do our own little thing. Again, it's cool. And then one person makes it through, and it's like, okay. And then other people start to, and then black people don't own grab. Because when you look at online streaming now, that's what makes people get paid. But it's white girls that stream and pay more money for music than anything else. When you go to a grime concert, you get everyone that goes there, which is cool. Music's for everyone. But in terms of money, it's actually white teenage girls that spend more money on Spotify and whatnot that makes everything flourish. So again, even when you've got a struggle music, if it's not for the people that you kind of try to appeal to, we're not going to thrive. So again, back to the community component I was saying earlier, if we don't collectively come together and support each other and want to take that risk, then we're just going to keep making the same mistake. We don't own anything. Like, in terms of black people as a whole, we don't own and control any genre of music. We don't. And when it comes to books, we write books, but we don't own major publishing houses. We don't own any major newspapers. The Voice is there, but no one really reads The Voice. You got South London Press, but no one really reads it like that. So we don't own any major newspapers. Nationalism had their one for time, but right. No offense, but it just Anyway, so we don't own any major record labels. We don't own any major stations, radio stations. We don't own any legit stations. We not really know. So we own a bag of pirate stations. We don't own any publishing houses to publish content. Okay, and also we don't own many like art galleries. So actually, we don't know any major art galleries.
I was gonna say there's independent ones. You may
Definitely.
get a few independents.
But with the amount of money we spend on nonsense, we could easily just make an independent one, like massive, and say, you know what, we're gonna shove you. We're gonna make you have a nice space somewhere in Soho or something like that. So when it comes to the young people, and we're saying to him, yeah, do you know what? you can do this, you can do that, and they turn around and say, but how though? We've got nowhere to go. They're right. We don't own and control anything, and for us to thrive, we have to. That's what it is. It's literally about power. We are too busy dealing with horizontal issues. We need to be dealing with vertical issues. And Dr. Claude Anderson talks about in his book called Powernomics. He talks about, like, we're dealing with issues like saying, all right, well, you're from this area, I'm from that area, you're more bougie because you live over there, I'm more hood because I live over here. Okay, cool. Well, you're a woman, I'm a man. Okay, those are the issues. You're this vertical issues when it comes to us as a collective. And we don't deal with things as us as a collective because there's so much of a divide. So much of a divide. And they've done a great job. When I say they, I'm talking about the powers that be, but the oppressors have done a great job by putting these little intricate things to make us face each other. Going back to 1712 when you had William Lynch, when they lynched him, where people have argued to say he didn't exist, but his principles still stand when it comes to old versus young, young versus old, man versus woman, woman versus man, light skin versus dark skin versus light skin, It all plays into part now. 77% of Nigerian women bleach their skin. 40% of Indian women bleach their skin because of the insecurities that they have that the system's put into place where they want to make people feel better if you're lighter and worse off if you're darker. Plus, they've actually turned that into commodity money where you got Nivea and other brands that will make money off people's insecurities. Then us being black men, we're stupid enough to fall into that and play into the hands of the oppressor, where we will encourage that behaviour and still perpetuate that same nonsense, be it through media, music, be it through books, be it through any kind of content where we will celebrate someone that's lighter. We play into that. The only time you don't really see that is in Afrobeats videos. But soon, give it like 3 or 4 years, they keep making commercial music. Burner's going to do his thing, Davido's going to do his thing, cool. But soon, you're going to start to see the change. We've allowed it through dancehall, we've allowed it through rap and R&B, we've allowed it through grime. You're starting to see the demise of the African mind. It's another book by Chinweizu called Decolonizing the African Mind, where he talks about even though you can walk around and be black, if you're not black up here, forget it. If you're not black in your mind, forget it. It's about having the African centeredness, which ties into my book, Is Blackness a Myth or Reality? Because the difference between being black and being African is black is political. White people don't really call themselves anything else, but they say I'm white, but that's about it because they know it's about politics. White gives you power. White gives you. Do you see what I'm saying? Black is an alternative word that came after, let's say, Negro or nigger, but it came from Negro, which in German means something, in Greek means necro, meaning corpse, meaning death, meaning so many different things. But black is just a political way of saying I am this, because it's not really a skin color. Nothing in this world is this color. Nothing in the universe is really that color. There's a few things you could say is the closest to it, which is carbon, which is from the earth, which with pressure makes diamonds, but nothing's really that dark. The darkest person in Africa is not even black. The whitest person in Europe is not even white. If they were, they'd be dead. So black, no one's actually black. We're just a shade of brown. So the idea of being black is just political to put you on a stance on where you are on the scale. But because we're so European and so, because of Stockholm syndrome, we like our oppressors so much, we'll follow into the terminology that they give us. If you're black and born before 1991, you'd probably put black British on your parents put black British on your birth certificate, whether you're African or not. Only after 1991 did they create black British Caribbean or black British African. So when people are separating ourselves, it's because the oppressors are giving us options. So when you got people saying, oh, okay, I'm mixed or I'm biracial, okay, cool, identify how you want to identify, but you're only using terminology that was given to you. Because 100 years ago, you were still black. 50 years ago, you was black. 40 years ago, you was black. That was it. You might say I'm mixed because my mum or my dad's white or my whatever, but in terms of politics, you was black. You're still IC3 to the police. You're still called the N-word. You are still called a certain ape. That's it. So the moment we start to detach ourselves from our collective thought, that's when we start to lose. In The Art of War by Sun Tzu, he talks about if you know yourself and you don't know your enemy, you're 50% in the battle and you've lost. If you know the enemy but you don't know yourself, you've lost straight away. But if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you're always going to win. And a lot of us don't know ourselves. So that's why we're always losing. We're making the same silly mistakes because we haven't learned from the people from before us. That's why reading is so fundamental, especially when it comes to boys. So you have Jawanza Kunjufu, this book here called Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. This book here is this guy actually looks like Drake, don't you think? Like baby Drake back in the day. Look at Drake in it back in the day. His baby picture looks like Drake, right? But this book here, and this was from the 80s, I believe.
Wow,
I think this book is,
and it's so relevant.
it's still relevant.
Right
I am telling you, he breaks it down in terms of, when it comes to this book, he talks about destroy black boys because black boys are seen as the go-to people to attack first, because girls are, they mature quicker, and girls are seen as a lot smarter. When you look at the curriculum now, you look at GCSE results, African girls or black girls do better than African boys, Caribbean boys, whatever. So the boys seem to be the one to focus on because they're the weakest link. You always go for the weakest link when you want to fight a battle. And he says there's so many things that boys have to do when it comes to masculinity, it comes to broken homes, when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to so many different things. He says that they get attacked all the time, and that's how they destroy it. Because if you destroy the man, just like on a plantation where they used to dehumanize a man by tying a horse to each side and then rip the horse and split him in half. Or what they used to do is get a pregnant woman, stand her on a block, and then they used to get other pregnant women and children around, then they used to cut her open and then have the baby drop out and then stamp on the baby's head, because the people that are watching, it's going to create trauma. It's going to create that little bit of a hormone in them that's going to be infused into the baby, which then the baby's going to be born in fear before anything else. So when you've got these people that they got tactics in order to get rid of people and to pump fear, they're always going to find a way to put it. That's why most of the adverts on on TV about Africa is a baby with a massive stomach, flies around their eyes. It's because you're like, oh, do you know what? I don't want to be attached to Africa. So you go to certain Jamaicans, like, yo, you're African. They're like, why? Unless you're Rasta, it's like, not even. It's because the vision of Africa has been so bad, which is about the miseducation of a Negro. So attacking boys was the first thing they wanted to do, because if you attack the power is in the men. The spirit is in the women. Spirit is in the women. Every revolutionary movement you can think of was because of a woman. You got the Haitian Revolution, which was great, and you had Toussaint Louverture, and you had Dessalines, and you had Bookman, but every single one of them had influence by a woman. Dessalines was the soldier. He was just thumping up the French, just dicing them up. Like, oh, you want to come here? All right, cool. Come. We're going to hide in the bushes, and then we're going to show you how we get down. He was then taught how to fight by his mother, African woman. Yeah? You had Queen Nanny of the Maroons in Jamaica. She, again, was the one who was like, boom. You had Asantewa as well. You had Ghana when they was defeating the English. Again, it's a woman with a shotgun saying, all right, it's on site, who wants it? She was one that's leading the team. Like every revolutionary, when you got Martin Luther King and you've got him saying, I have a dream, when he's got that speech and he's in the Capitol, you hear a woman, there's the audio you can hear where they try to mute it out, but the original, you can hear a woman in the background because he's talking, he's waffling. He's just saying what he wants to say. There's a woman in the background saying, talk about the dream, Martin. Talk about the dream. Then he goes. Yeah. And that becomes his prolific speech, but it's a woman in the background. The spirit, the essence is in the woman. The power is in the man. So when you've got the power and spirit together, you can't be controlled. You can't. So when you take it away, you have to take away the power first. Because women will fight. But if a man's in front, certain people are going to want to be like, whoa, maybe I don't want to rock it out with this person because this guy looks like he's kind of big and I don't really want any problems. So let me just stand up. So when you've got a black man protecting a black woman, it's they don't want to see that. They work their magic to separate that. They tried everything. They tried to separate the family by putting man against woman on the plantation. Then you try to separate the man by throwing him in jail. Then you try to separate the man by saying, do you know what? Don't cry. Don't be emotional. Don't even show weakness to your woman, because if you do that, you're going to be a wuss and she's not going to like you. Then go to the woman saying, you don't want a man that cries. What's wrong with you? Like, he's going to see you're going to what? You're going to not cry and he's going to cry. Like, what kind of... So then you had the separation where you had a girl saying, women saying, do you know what? I don't need a man. I'm good for myself. I can protect myself. I don't need no weak man. Why are you crying for? Then you teach that to young boys, like they fall over and graze their knee. And most boys don't want to cry, but it's the fear of seeing blood where they're like, you know what I mean? You know, little ones don't cry until they see blood. So then you say to them, don't cry, man up and be man up. His balls haven't even dropped yet and you wanted him to man up. How? Because that's what you've been told. And then so we don't have that security where men can express. And then men can say, do you know what, I'm going to talk to you like a man to a woman, woman to a man, and say, do you know what, I got some issues I want to deal with, you know, but I don't know how to deal with it. Let me get some of your light. Let me get some of your wisdom. So men internalize it. So then men get sectioned because of mental health. There are a lot of people walking around today, especially a lot of road men, that are walking around with undiagnosed traumas because they can't express. Do you see what I'm saying? Whether it's, I've been on the road and I've seen some like, even if you had to lick down someone, That's traumatic. If you had to juke someone, you've actually had to feel the blade go into someone's skin. Say you killed them. You didn't want to do it, but you just on stuff that day because you weren't breathing. That's traumatic. Then you go jail. You see some things in jail, or something might have happened to you in jail. That's traumatic. Yeah. Then you come out, and then you've got to, what? You served your time. You paid your dues, and then you must go back into society and do what? At what point did you get any healing? But then, if you go to jail, you're, do you know what I mean, 5 times more likely to go back in. So then you go back in, doing the same thing, boom. Or let's say you do something, you don't go to jail, and you're just navigating around, and just like you can't express yourself. That's traumatic. Seeing some stuff like seeing someone getting shot, your brother getting shot, and he's there dying out. That's traumatic. That's crazy. But we don't even want to. Some people, when they watch adverts of sick puppies, Google it. There are people that have actually called and said, "Can you take the advert down because it's traumatic?" Just seeing a puppy, they're not RSPCA. It's traumatic. But the way they've worked it is so we can be desensitized, is plugging it and saying, "Do you know what? Black people are 2/5 of a human being." That's what James Madison said. He was the 4th president of the United States. For him to justify having slaves, he had to say we're 2/5 of a human being. Meaning, if you go outside and you step on an ant, you're not going to feel bad because it's an ant. It's small. It's nothing. It's not a real person. So who cares? Or if it's a slug, you're like, ugh. But whatever. That's about it. So for him to justify slavery during the 1700s, he had to say black men and black women were 2/5 of a man. So now we still got that same mentality. Like if we was on stage and we had was an audience and I was doing like a presentation and I showed a puppy being crushed to death, most people would cry and be like, "Oh my God, oh my days." And especially if you're not black, you're definitely going to be like, "Oh, what can we do? Who's that horrible person that did that killed that puppy?" And they will start to raise money like out of nowhere. There'll be a GoFundMe page, like there'll be like 50, 100K, like boom, instantly. What can we do? If I show the slide and say this person he was on his way home from school, got stabbed, 15 years old, Baptista, Stratford. People be like, "Man, knife crime's crazy." So anyway, what we getting for lunch, you know, man's hungry, you know. What you saying? No one do anything. The fact that we're in a situation now in society where a life of a young person is not taken as serious as the life of an animal, forget it. Forget it. The amount of money that gets raised for animals in comparison to the only time money gets raised for people is when it's time for burials. It's like, "Oh, can you help me? I can't afford to bury my son or bury my nephew or niece or daughter or whatever. Could you?" And then they might raise that 5K and then they can get the funeral done and whatnot. Other than that, there's no action because there is no need. Nothing's priority anymore. We are desensitized. And the moment we're desensitized from things that's happened to our young people, whether it be a boy or a girl, how can we call ourselves a nation? How can we call ourselves a people? Every nation cares about their young people at some point, or cares about their women or whatever. And we don't have that as black people. There's what's his name? A Russian, I don't know if he's a philosopher, but I think he's into politics. I'm not too sure. His name's Dostoevsky, something like that. He says you can judge a nation by their prison population, what's happening in their prison. Okay, so with the population, black people are 3% of the population, but we are like 13% of the prison population. Meaning, if you put it into a ratio, there is more black people in prison in the UK than there are black people in prison in America. Let's put that into a bigger perspective. There are more black people in prison in America than there were slaves during the peak time of slavery in the United States in the South.
Well, they are the new slaves.
Thank you. So even though we're seen as small as the UK, racism, prejudice, and institutional racism is worse here, but it's subtle. I'd rather Trump because he's going to call me an N-word and I'm good. I need to know how far I can trust you. You know when it's subtle where it's like, "Hi, you're right," or they move your bag, or they might say, "Do you know what? I don't know. I don't want to stand next to this person." That is worse because you don't know how. And if you're dealing with that, where you're always on edge, I don't know if they like me, they like me, they race, I don't can't. That's traumatic. That's sending you mad. Most of us are walking around mad. You know, like the fact that you can't even be yourself in your day-to-day life as a black person is crazy. That is traumatic. Think about it when you're in a lift. You're just like that. I'm just like this. All right. You're more relaxed. You don't have a hood, but you might even do this anyway in a lift. And just for the sake of it, you want to make them feel comfortable. So let's say you're in a lift. Yeah, you got your hat. You got your trackie on. White person comes in, white woman or white man, just come from work in a suit, and they door opens. You're already in there, and they come in and they see you. What's the first thing you do?
Just try and smile.
Thank you.
You have to.
Right. What kind of smile do you do?
A fake smile. It's not. It's the fake smile, man. It's the I'm peaceful.
Thank you. Exactly. And people watching say, do you know, I know what he's talking about. Exactly.
Yeah, standard. Even today when I was in my own, where I live, I got into a lift, someone else come in. Like, obviously I'm big, black or whatever, whatnot. She's a woman. I think she was like an Asian descent or something. But you could just feel that they're uncomfortable stepping into this small area where we are. I'm not going to harm her. I'm going to my yard.
Yeah.
But you could feel the tension. So you have to kind of, not to say put my hands behind my back and like be almost defenseless. Like, I'm not here to harm you. I'm just trying to get to where I'm getting to. So you put on a smile. You know what I mean? You do the whole fake. I'm just...
And you might raise your eyebrows when you smile, right?
Yeah,
you do that
the whole 9 yards.
Right?
Yeah.
See, you know that. Right. So the fact that we have to do that on a day-to-day basis, and you do that from when you're young. I remember doing that in school days. Like, because you just know, I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable.
You want to be less threatening to what they seem to perceive you as.
Exactly. Why are we doing that? That's not our job. How are you 16, 15 years old, you know, to like that because because of what you may think about me, I'm going to do the job to make sure there is no other race that does that. We do that on a day. That's traumatic. Who's writing about that? Who's tweeting that? No one is. So even though we might go, I'm doing certain things, we're still going to do it. You may have to do it. You've got a lovely jumper on, you got a shirt on, but it's like, you're still a black man. So let me just, you're right. Or you might go high pitch. Okay, have a good day. Like, you want to change just to please them. They don't change to please us. They don't understand when we feel uncomfortable. Really? You felt uncomfortable? I didn't actually think that was the case. I mean, he was very open. He spoke. I mean, yes, he made monkey noises, but, he probably likes animals. And yes, he threw a banana at you. Maybe he thought you was hungry. Like, yes, he called you a coon, but maybe he's thinking about his childhood when he had a gollywog as a child to play with. Like, and then when you say, no, you're doing this, then they say, oh, but when you speak out, it's reverse racism. It's like, that's called psychological projection. When you actually believe in something, but you don't know how to deal with it, so you pull it onto someone else. And no, you're doing it. Like, back in the days we used to do it as kids. You know when you fart, but you blame it on someone else. Like, oh, you farted, but it's like you smelled, you dealt it. Like, that's what it is. It's called psychological projections, and that's what they're very good at that. And they're very good at what you call compartmentalization. Do you know what I mean? So they'll say, do you know what? You're all right. I like you too. You're all right.
The rest of them.
Right?
I've heard that.
Right? Oh, do you know what I mean? Or do you know what? I hate black people. I do sometimes. You know what I mean? I hate them. I hate the little wogs. I hate them. But you see that Sterling? Oh, he can score goals, can't he? Right? Like,
yeah, real shit.
But as a victim, every single day we have to put on that face, especially from the corporate world. You got your little money. You're a lawyer. What? There is not one institution that I can think of that's not racist. Not one in the UK. It's worse here as in the States. States is you have BET. You imagine, we had Real McCoy and that was it. That was the closest we got to black TV. Desmond's as well. That's it. Do you think we can have BET? No. So what if we called it white entertainment television? You do. It's called the 5 channels. Like every single one of them. Like, so say it loud. This book here, phenomenal book. And Marxism and the Fight Against Racism, edited by Brian Richardson. This book looks at being black and proud, but it connects all sorts of revolutions. So even when, like, you had revolutions in the 70s and 80s here, the Black Power movement, a lot of Asians were involved. Because if you weren't white, you was non-white, meaning you was black. So a lot of Asians were called black. So this book highlights that from America from Marx to movements that was happening here to but it touches more on American movements, but from a Marxist approach. This book is very, 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 very good. This book here was actually given to me by a sister, an auntie. Now, it's a textbook of Igbo linguistics. Now, the reason why she gave this to me is because I was speaking to her about the vernacular of the English language, meaning like you have there, meaning over there, and then you have theirs and like theirs, sort of thing, and then
you have there, but like as in they are, or
right?
So I got you.
Yeah, hair, and all kinds of hairs. So I was speaking to her about that, and she was like, what the English language is, it's like she said it's like a spell, yeah. And she's from the Igbo tribe, and she said that when you start to understand the English language, you start to realize how messed up it is, because you go to other parts of the world, like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, this is probably like a real ignorant statement, but there's like over like 300 characters in the Chinese lexicon. I think there's over 300 characters. You know, we've got like 26. I think there's loads of characters. And then like when I see the characters, I'm like, bruh, I can't learn all that. It's long. But other people learning language say it's so hard because of like, you've got capital letters that in the wrong place, and you've got like, when it comes to like the word light, and you've got GHT, like that should give you the sound, but it doesn't. They've taken it out. So silent letters, and that's just like, yeah, like it's crazy. So what she says is that when you start to learn English language, Dr. Umar Johnson talks about it as well, saying that a lot of our languages have a lot of vowels in it, as opposed to English language being consonant. So a lot of us are structured by, hello, I'm going over there to join my friends to discuss how we can solve this solution. When it comes to African language, it's like water, it flows. So we will say something like, listen, and then we say like in more like colloquial street terms, it's like, so I'm gonna go check my bedroom quickly, and then we're gonna go do a couple of things, and then we're gonna move over there. You know what I mean? So feel me. So we speak where it's like it just flows, and we can understand the whole thing. Now, another key thing when it comes to language is understanding that when it comes to European doctrine, a lot of it's so structured where it's like they will say something to you, and then like you in university, and it's like, okay, discuss, or do you understand? When it comes to African language, it's more spiritual. So it's like, do you feel me? Majority of the time you say to him, do you feel what I'm saying? You're like, yeah, I feel you, because it's not even about what you... It's like, guys, yeah, you know when you've had a dispute with a woman, right? And it's not what she said.
How it said.
It's how she said it. Do you know what I mean? It's always about how. And that's the African way of understanding language. It's not, hey, I don't care what you say. It's how you say it. Like, what do you say? It's all the time. So naturally, we're like, oh, do you feel me? Because we're rhythmatic
Vibrations.
people. Exactly. So when you understand like West African languages, like the Igbo language, it's amazing. So she gave me this book, which highlights how certain... So for example, like, because of spirituality, like, mental health doesn't exist there.
Okay.
It doesn't, because there's no term. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's no terminology for it, because it's like, what? We just call it that, and then we've got a solution for it. We don't understand depression. We don't understand bipolar. There's no word for it. So even in languages today, in certain parts of Africa, in 54 countries, there are still languages that don't have a word for something that we would have over here. It's crazy. But then it's like, is that a bad thing? And I look at it as like, no, because they don't have a word for it, because they don't identify it, because it doesn't happen. So when it comes to like I was saying about mental health, it just doesn't exist, because it's like, well, no, that's you just need some rest. Like, you just need some rest. Like you like over here we have a headache, and it's like, oh, I need to take some paracetamol or whatnot. Then it's like, okay, well, Africans look at it and say, well, where's your headache? There's 3 places you can have a headache: here, top and back. So here would be like stressed, here would be like hunger, and here would be like lack of water. So is your headache here? Drink some more water. Do you know what I mean?
Problem solved.
This is what I'm saying. So they're good at solutions. Do you know what I mean? But with spirituality, it comes from the women. On a slave plantation, the doctor was also the chef. So because your food is your medicine, so you had a lot of women who were also witch. They call them witch doctors. I don't like to use that terminology, but they were witch doctors. But they're also the chefs, like the mammies, because... You see what I'm saying? Even though they was going through oppression, the slave master wanted the mammy to whip up something for him, because he knew she had the remedies. Despite, I don't like you. I don't like your people. I don't like your family. And I'm probably going to sell one of your sons soon anyway. But I got a little bit of a cough. Can you just whip? So she'll just get this little herb, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then boom. Imagine that. Plus, when they had children, they'll get the slaves to breastfeed, because they do the African, what's the little, oh man, the substance that comes out before the milk comes out, that little bit of energy there that comes out, the little bio kind of type thing, that in itself holds so much, like in terms of nutrients and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They would make, when they have a new baby, the slave like breastfeed. It's mad. Like there's little, like, you know you're gonna be whipped, but let me just I'm gonna breastfeed. Yeah, bring your child, come. I'm just, and then they never. So if you have a child, your child would breastfeed on this one, and then the white child would breastfeed on this one. They would never swap. So it's like, if you ever let my child touch that tit, I'm gonna imagine that. He was like, yeah, just don't keep him on that one and keep your eye on da 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 da.